Just moments ago, something subtle but meaningful unfolded in the heart of Barcelona. It happened at the renowned Liceu Theater this past Wednesday, July 23rd, a place steeped in tradition and echoing with history where music, elegance, and ceremony have coexisted for generations. There, under the rich golden lights of the stage, the royal family of Spain came together once again to honor the spirit of youth and potential. It was the 15th edition of the Princess of Girona Awards, an event that has steadily grown in national significance since its inception in 2010. This particular ceremony carried the added weight of not just honoring talent, but of showcasing the evolving image of the Spanish monarchy itself. Seated among the dignitaries, scholars, and young recipients were King Philippe VI, Queen Letizia, and their two daughters, Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofía. Dressed with quiet elegance, they moved with the poise that comes from decades of royal duty. But among the carefully choreographed moments, one small gesture would stir unexpected ripples, a gesture not shouted but whispered, carried in the glances of those who noticed and passed along in murmurs after the event had ended. The Princess of Girona Foundation was established with the noble mission of encouraging the aspirations of Spain's youth, those who dream, who strive, who innovate. Each year, the foundation recognizes exceptional young people who have distinguished themselves in areas such as science, business, education, and the arts. This year's honorees, Pablo Sanchez, Manuel Bauzas, Andreu Dotti Antoni Forner Cuenca, Valentina Agudelo, and Gabriela Asturias, represent not only brilliance in their fields but a renewed hope for Spain's future. It is Princess Leonor now bearing the title of Princess of Girona, in addition to her responsibilities as Princess of Asturias and Viana, who had the honor of presenting the awards. At only 18, Leonor has already stepped gracefully into her role as heir to the Spanish throne. She speaks publicly with a confidence beyond her years, and at this ceremony she carried out her duties with dignity and warmth. There was pride in her voice and sincerity in her smile, both of which were evident to anyone paying attention. Her younger sister Infanta Sofía stood nearby, often quiet in the public spotlight, but always present, always observing, and always dignified in her own right. Yet it was not Leonor's speeches, nor the remarkable achievements of the awardees that sparked the greatest interest once the ceremony concluded. Rather, it was a seemingly minor shift in position, an unspoken exchange between mother and daughter that drew the curiosity of many. During the customary group photo, as the family gathered before the cameras, Queen Letizia originally positioned herself between her husband King Felipe and her youngest daughter Sofia. The placement seemed natural, maternal balanced, but then, with a grace that might have gone unnoticed by most, Letizia subtly changed her stance. She stepped forward, aligning herself in front of her husband and inadvertently turning her back on Sofia. For just a moment, the young Infanta was visually eclipsed her presence, albeit briefly obscured in the photograph and the narrative of the moment. Some saw nothing in it, a fleeting rearrangement perhaps to accommodate the photographer's cues or to optimize the composition of the image. Others, however, felt a pause. There was something telling in the gesture, something that gave rise to quiet commentary. In these modern times, particularly for those of us who have spent decades observing public life with a discerning eye, we understand that photographs are more than just records of appearance. They are symbols, and in a royal context where so much of meaning is conveyed through ritual and posture, the way one stands can speak volumes. The camera's unblinking and precise caught the moment. So did several attendees. Conversations after the ceremony began to include that peculiar detail. Why had the queen shifted her position in such a way that Sofia was briefly placed behind her? Was it accidental or something else? Of course, any mother might adjust her place in a photo. Perhaps Letizia was simply moving instinctively, trying to create symmetry in the image, or perhaps she was focusing on standing close to her husband in a moment that required solidarity. But speculation, as we know, has a life of its own, especially when the family in question is royal. Despite the brief obscuring of her place, Infanta Sofía remained the picture of composure. With the grace instilled in her since birth, she maintained a soft smile and stood tall. There was no sign of discomfort, no visible frustration. And perhaps that's what made the moment even more poignant, the quiet resilience of a young woman now entering the tender years between adolescence and adulthood, choosing calm instead of reaction. It is worth noting that Princess Leonor, too, radiated a quiet assurance throughout the evening. Her speeches, her eye contact with the recipients, even the way she applauded each action affirmed her growing role not just as a royal figurehead, but as a young woman who genuinely cares about the causes she supports. Still, as the evening continued and the applause echoed off the historic walls of the Liceu Theater that moment, Letizia's subtle turn lingered in people's minds. Not because it was grand, but because it was small. It is often in the smallest moments after all that family dynamics reveal themselves. For many of us who have lived through generations of public figures and shifting social roles, we understand that no family, no matter how noble or adorned with titles, is immune to the complexities of relationships. A sideways glance, a delayed reply, a shift in body language. These are the windows through which emotional realities sometimes peek. Letizia, once a respected journalist before her royal marriage, is no stranger to the camera's gaze. She has spent years mastering public poise and presence, which is why the gesture sparked so much interest because it did not seem like the action of someone unaware of optics. It seemed deliberate, or at least revealing. It would be presumptuous to claim certainty about the motive. No one but Letizia herself knows what prompted her to move. And yet, in a world where public images are studied like paintings, the interpretation becomes part of the story. As the evening came to a close, the award winners stood proud, their families applauding from the audience. The royal family, too, applauded with genuine joy. The legacy of the ceremony remained intact. But the air carried more than the echo of celebration, it carried curiosity, perhaps even a touch of concern. In the aftermath, media outlets began discussing the gesture. Commentators debated whether it meant anything at all. Was it a sign of favoritism toward Leonor as the future queen, or a momentary lapse in awareness? Was it simply protocol or positioning, or did it hint at the often complicated emotions that exist within even the most carefully presented families? If you've raised children or watched siblings grow, you know how nuanced the parent-child bond can be. Love is a given, yes, but love takes many forms and is not always equally shown. Younger siblings sometimes feel overshadowed, especially when the elder is destined for a throne. And parents, though human, are often asked to balance their affection with the weight of roles and responsibilities that extend far beyond their private lives. Infanta Sofía, who has always played a supporting role in the family's public life, has begun to step forward more frequently. Her poise during this ceremony reminded everyone that she, too, is growing into her own. And perhaps in years to come, this moment, small as it seems, will be remembered as one of the quiet signals of her silent strength. As those of us who have seen decades pass understand so well, it is not only in the grand speeches or dramatic proclamations that meaning lives. Often, it is in the soft gestures, the hand left unheld, the seat left unoffered, the photo left partially obscured, that stories begin. They may not be loud, but they echo. And so, while the Princess of Girona Awards 2025 will rightly be remembered for its celebration of young excellence and royal duty, it will also be remembered by some for what it quietly revealed, that even within the most carefully curated portraits, the heart remains human, and the human heart, we know, is rarely without its mysteries. As the night settled over Barcelona and the final notes of applause faded into polite conversation and hushed reflections, many guests left the Liceu Theater with more than just admiration for the honorees. They carried with them a quiet sense of curiosity, a subtle wondering not about scandal or conflict, but about family. And isn't that what so often captivates us the most? Not the grandeur of palaces or the shimmer of tiaras, but the very human undercurrents within families like our own. We watch the royal family not just because of tradition or duty, but because we see something of ourselves reflected in them. Mothers and daughters navigating closeness and distance, siblings learning their roles beside one another, spouses balancing partnership and public life. These are not just royal realities, they're human ones. And in a moment like the one between Queen Letizia and Sofía, we're reminded that even in gilded halls, emotions stir quietly, sometimes unexpectedly. Many who have raised daughters may recall moments when one child seemed to slip into the background, not out of neglect, but simply because one moment called more attention to the other. And many daughters in turn carry quiet memories both of being seen and of being unseen. Perhaps that's what resonated so deeply. It wasn't judgment, it was recognition. There is also the element of time. Those of us in our later years often view such events through a longer lens. We've seen how a single expression can linger, how a moment dismissed in youth can be recalled decades later. It reminds us to cherish clarity in our relationships to ensure that our gestures, no matter how brief, convey love as clearly as our words. Because sometimes it is not what is said on stage that remains, but the moment someone turned toward or away from someone they love. As Queen Letizia and her daughters continue to shape their public image and private bonds, perhaps this moment will become just one stitch in the larger fabric of their shared journey. But for those who watched with knowing eyes, it served as a gentle reminder that behind every crown beats the quiet, complex rhythm of family.